we put it up on the site. All right, you guys are good to go. Let me jump to my seat. I'll give you a thumbs up or a thumb at 8 minutes, and then you have 2 more minutes to finish.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
All right. This is the final presentation for Yax. All right, this semester there were 3 people working on Yax. I'm Nick. I'm the project lead for this semester.
I'm Anthony. I was one of the developers.
I'm David.
I don't think WebEx can see either of you, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
It's a relatively narrow
Yep.
camera.
All right, so I'm sure most of you know what Yax is, but just as a refresher, Yax is a course scheduler, helps you visualize your schedule, helps you find courses, sections, conflicts, prereqs, and co-reqs. So how are we organized? We have our Yax repository on GitHub. Each member clones the repository. And then we have our issue pipeline, where issues come in from the community. They're assigned with priorities. And each member can choose an issue to work on. Once they finish their issue, they can make a pull request where it's reviewed by 2 other people. And once 2 other people have reviewed it, that pull request is merged. For communication, this semester we had short in-person meetings after every RCOS meeting where each member would check in with their status, if there are any blockers, etc. We also have a Yax Discord where we can communicate with members of Yax who are currently not taking RCOS. So what's new for this semester? We have some bug fixes, multiple UI improvements, and a getting started guide for new developers. So what's next for Yax? We want to continue being responsive to feature requests and bug reports, continue to improve the UI and the user experience, continue to implement new features, and after a few more productive semesters, we want to potentially reach out to other schools. Now on to member contributions.
All right, so the new guide for new users that he mentioned earlier, that was one of the things that I made. It's pretty in-depth. It includes getting set up, troubleshooting for getting set up in case you run into issues. I also put stuff in about how to contribute to this document. If you run into issues that aren't on here, you get to figure it out on your own. It also has a bunch of links to like different tutorials and documentation for people that are new to stuff like Vue, which is a lot of our front end, and for the back end Python stuff that is kind of complicated. I also fixed a couple minor bugs like the dark mode scroll bar not automatically refreshing when you change modes.
Hi, I'm David, and for Yax, my primary issue was focusing on displaying professor name and email on the respective course pages. So as you can see on the images below, on the left-hand side is what Yax looks like, and on the right-hand side is what my issue will solve. As you can see, it will display the professor's last name as well as their respective email. Currently, it doesn't work for multiple instructors yet, but I'll try and get that up and running by August 20th. And one of the difficulties I faced was that I had very little app experience. So for the entirety of RCOS, I had to work on backend as well as front-end things. I had to learn HTML scraping. I had to learn SQL, Flask, and Vue. But I did manage to get that up and running.
Alright, so what I did for the semester, I simplified the logic for generating some columns in the Course Explorer page. Before, to create the columns, the code was just copy and pasted, which it was only 2 columns, so it wasn't that bad, but now there's a loop there, so that reduced the amount of code copied. Also, dark mode. Before, dark mode used the same color scheme for the course schedule as light mode. Now there's a new a specific dark mode colored scheme, so that should look way better. It's not implemented yet, but it should get merged soon. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? How's
How's it deployed?
deployed? To be honest, I'm not sure because I'm the temporary project lead for this semester because our normal project lead isn't in Arch, so he just asked me to step in, and he usually takes care of how Yax is deployed.
So I think that one of your project leads is actually paying for server time.
Yeah.
But I'm not positive. I'm doing it for a couple of projects myself, and we have other ways of doing it, but it requires that people be logged in via VPN in order to make it work. So there are complications. But yeah, it's okay you don't know that, but just it's not a simple answer sometimes. Any other questions? Not getting anything online, but you know that I'm not going to let you go without anything. So that being a good question, let's follow up with another hopefully good question. One of the things that, one of the things that I find interesting with you guys is you've managed to maintain people off campus almost every year. Your project leads tend to stick around for multiple years after they graduate. That's a different experience than a lot of our projects where only the people on campus are actually working on them with any vigor. Can you describe that? Is that something that you liked, or was that just a pain, or
Yeah, it's really helpful to have people who have worked on Yax before. They're all in the Yax Discord, so we can ask them for help. I know David had an issue with the CSVs, and he got help from one of the more experienced devs who actually made the CSV stuff. So it's really helpful.
Cool. All right. Any other questions for? Alice has no questions, or Alice is telling me that no one has questions. Anybody else have questions? If not, let's give Yax a hand. Good job, guys. Are you next, Graham?
Yeah.
What project? Because I can't remember that far in advance. Dorm design?
Yeah. So my slides are also.
So we have Graham coming up on dorm design. If you're keeping score. It's not letting me put it into present mode, Graham, but probably because you have it on view only, but that's okay if you want to. Oh, no, wait a minute. It is now.
I didn't know that was a feature.
I didn't know. It was just taking a long time to reload. Okay, same thing. I'll give you a thumb at 8.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back, guys. This is semester 3 of dorm design. This time it's just myself. So yeah, let's just get into it. So what is it exactly? So it started as a collaborative platform. Well, it still is, for designing and planning dorm rooms. And this started during the pandemic. Me and my roommate needed a way to, we had a room, we were assigned a room. So it's how can we design it? How can we figure out what's going to fit? Who's going to bring what? And this really just pulls that all into one place. So it includes a packing list and a room editor. So you can assign and claim different items. You can add quantities, dimensions. You can see if things are going to actually fit in the room. You can add any item to a packing list, and they can be viewed in the editor. You don't have to view it in the editor if it's something insignificant or small. So you can design a room from scratch or use a pre-existing design. So you can change all aspects of the room, like dimensions, default furniture, the layout, the shape and whatnot. And other users can clone your room and then use it as a template. So if I make a Bray Hall template and somebody else wants it, I can just send them the link to it, they can copy it, and then you can go on your separate ways. And it's also designed to be anonymous. So no account is required. It stores the nickname in the browser, and it can be changed at any time. This is just for privacy. I don't want to have personal data or anything like that. So we don't store any data in our database, which is always nice. So what did we accomplish this semester? So this semester wasn't really flashy visually, so I focused a lot on performance. So we had this product, and it had all the features that I wanted. Now how can we make that run as fast as possible, not only on the client side, but also on the server side? So one feature that we focused on was also room deletion. So at the beginning of the semester, if you made a room, if you're done with the room, it would just kind of sit in the database for a while. So we added a way so you can, or I added a way so you can delete this room. So you can just go into settings, delete it, and then you're done with it. We also switched over from React's context to Redux. We have active user indicator, which is similar to Google Docs. It has like who's on the room. We also have room previews. So if you're on the front page, as I'll show a little example in a couple slides, but if you're on the front page, so you don't have to like click into a room to see like what it looks like if you can't really remember what it looks like. This is a nice little indicator to see what it is. It'll show you a little preview. So here is the front page. It's not very flashy, but, it gets the job done. So here, this is what it looks like actually in the interface. You can see on the left-hand side, we can see on the left, we have this editor. You can move stuff around. On the right, we have packing list that we can actually see what we're going to be bringing. So the stack, on the front end, we have React, Redux, Redux Thunk, Bootstrap, Sass, and HTML5. On the back end, we have Node.js, Express, WS, and Node Canvas. The database is a mix of RethinkDB and Redis, and then we use Docker, and it's all MIT licensed. So project organization, we have this like Kanban style setup on GitHub. And because it was me this semester, it wasn't too crucial, but I still like to keep everything organized. So for the Redis cache, this is something that we focused on, or I focused on for the performance of the backend. So previously, we were just writing everything to disk, which is not good if you're doing anything with a database. But if you're writing it to memory, that is significantly faster. So that's why we're using Redis, because it's in memory. So we're storing, so if you try to get a room, it doesn't exist in the cache, we pull it into the cache, and then anytime you try to reference that room, it'll just give you the latest version from the cache. When everybody leaves the room, it'll move it over to the persistent database. So we're trying, will reduce latency, because if you're doing a real-time application, you don't want there to be latency. So reduce latency, lower lag, better user experience, and it's also significantly faster on the server side. And this also opens the door for clustering to multiple server instances. So if I want to have like 4 servers running, I want it to be like synchronized with the cache in the center, I guess. And you can't really do that without having some sort of in-memory database or something that's very fast to store this stuff. So this is a small little diagram that I drew up. And this is what it was previously. So previously, we were just writing everything to the database, and it was fine. And for a couple of users, it was fine. But if you're trying to scale it up, that's going to be a major bottleneck. So now we have the Redis cache in the center. So when the room no longer has any active users, it'll just throw it over to the database. And if we're trying to get a new room, it'll load it into the cache, and then the cache will do all the heavy lifting from there. Another feature that I worked on was the room preview. And on the landing page, when you open up a room, it'll show it like at the bottom, so you don't need to like type in the link every time. But now it has a little room preview right there. And this is rendered on the server side using Node Canvas. And I found a cool little library called Node Canvas, and it's a Cairo backend for Canvas, but with Node.js bindings, which is really nice because I'm not actually rendering it with JavaScript. It's actually like I had to find like pre-built binaries for it. So, it's going to be significantly faster than if I were to render it like using straight up JavaScript. So again, that reduces any latency that there may be, and it's much faster than any JavaScript-based implementation. I also worked on an active user indicator. Now this was a little bit difficult because I try to maintain the fact I don't want your data on the database. So what I do now is if you were to join a room, we'll store your socket ID and the nickname that you have stored in your browser. It'll store that in the cache, and there'll just be like a map of all of that. So we can know actually which name refers to which socket connection. So if you were to leave, there's no evidence of you actually in the cache whatsoever. So it's an easy way to maintain who's actually in this room, who's modifying the room, without actually having to have user accounts or anything like that. So this just makes it's not really like a useful feature, I guess, but it is very nice to see who is actually on my room right now. It creates instead of having this be each person has their own instance, it creates a culminating experience, I guess, because it's you're working on it with these other people. So nickname stored in the cache along with the corresponding socket ID again. adds that layer of privacy. And another performance improvement is switching over from context to Redux. So context is a state management tool, technically, but it's not really well suited for this use case, because if you store everything in the React context, any component that depends on that context will have to be re-rendered regardless of which variables it's actually referencing within the state. But Redux, that is different, because we can just be like, I want to like depend on the selected item ID. But like on the right, we don't really need to depend on like something that the room editor on the left may have to depend on. So if something in the left changes in the room editor, if something changes there and doesn't need to change on the right, we don't have to re-render both. We only need to re-render the room editor itself. So that eliminates a lot of unnecessary re-renders. So we can have the client run as fast as possible and do as little re-rendering as possible. There's going to be a little bit of re-rendering happening, but try to slim down on it as much as possible. Future plans. I swear to God, I haven't removed this first line in 3 presentations. It's just always something I want to do, but it never ends up working out. That's a 3-dimensional room renderer using some sort of 3D rendering library. So I just think it'll be really cool to have like, you design the room, I have the data, you design the room, now let's just like scale it up one more dimension to see how it would actually look if you were to design this room. So that's always just going to be on the back burner, I feel like, but I just feel like it'll be really cool. Another feature is adding server-side rendering with Next.js, Razzle, or something like that. And this improves SEO and also has performance improvements. We don't have to do as many. We don't have to like send over a big React bundle and then whenever they render it, we can just send over the actual web page and you can re-render what you need to. So again, a lot of websites do this. Whether or not it's necessary or whether or not we need to do it, that's up in the air. But it still would be nice to improve the performance in that regard. And another thing I want to do is have a server cluster, and this would involve the Redis Cache as like a little like middleware between everything. So I want to refactor the server so that it can be deployed in a cluster. So if I have like even like a quad core CPU, like a dedicated CPU for this, I can run 4 servers, 1 on each. So then like, you know, that just helps for scaling up, because I don't want to have, because Node.js is single threaded. I don't want to like blast that one thread with like a ton of users. If I actually want to scale up, then I have to have more cores or multiple computers. So having this allows me to cluster and really scale out like how big this platform can really be. So again, it helps support more concurrent users at one time. And that should be it. Does anybody have any burning questions? Yeah.
For the active users feature, is that only people who are editing it, or does it show anyone who's like looking at it?
Yeah. So it's anybody who has the page like open. Anybody who's like in the room at that time. It will go away once the socket like expires. So I guess if your computer falls asleep or something, you're no longer in the room, and then I don't know. But yeah, it's not strictly like modifying things. It's just if you're in the room at one time, similar to how the Google Suite does it. Do you have any other questions? Yeah.
Going back to your stack, you mentioned something called React.
Mm-hmm. So it is a framework or a library for having like asynchronous actions with the Redux store. So like if I have a bunch of data in the Redux store and I want to have some like sort of like, I want to have functions that I'm going to use pretty often to modify the store. So I think for one, it's like updating items in the store. And I'm going to be using that quite frequently, because anytime you move something, you're going to have to call that. So instead of having like pulling the functions, then doing dispatch, whatever, you can just have a separate function called like update items, and then you pass it in. And it's like a middleware that will apply like the dispatch and will modify the state for you. So you don't have to like do it all yourself every time. So it's more of a convenience, not strictly necessary, but it makes the code look a lot nicer.
So you want the easy question or the hard question? Or actually, pick left or right.
Both are fine, I guess. Let's go the harder question.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm looking at
Mhm.
is, you guys have made some really good progress over, 3 semesters or something?
Mhm.
And we're coming up on the end of the summer semester, and we're coming up on, sorry, I'm bringing up the graph, on new freshmen coming in, and actually, you know, people changing dorms and everything. Have you thought about reaching out to like Megan Potter or one of the coordinators for the freshman class and seeing if you could, you know, launch this and have people using it, or is it
I feel
not
like-
quite there yet?
I feel like it's more of like the engineering dilemma where it's like I like working on it, and then it's like I work on it so much that it's like, oh shoot, I forgot to outreach this thing, like, because it's like
That's a little bit of what I'm getting at. It's
Yeah.
like it's I'm looking at it. You've got a lot of great features. You know, it may be time to see if
Yeah.
it can fly.
Yeah, it's always like it's like I think it's ready to go, and then it's like, oh wait, I need to add something unnecessary. The user's not really going to notice, but I'm going to.
Well, like the delete rooms, right?
Yeah.
That's really good for somebody doing development
Yeah.
because you end up with a mess, right? You have all the test things that you put in, but you know, the first semester you probably don't need that,
Yeah.
right? But I just you know think about it.
Yes, I'm definitely going to.
Okay, you know, Megan is nice. She's easy to talk to.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into it to see how actually have users using it. I think I do have a couple people that are using it right now. I know my sister, she like asked me what I was doing. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, try it out, and she likes it. So I've been using hers as a pseudo.
Well, you know, particularly if you can get like Bray or you know one of the rooms templates for one of the dorms. You know, you could do a test run there. You know, just send it out to everybody in the dorm. I'm sure that we could get some involvement from facilities.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, that was just one of my thoughts.
No, yeah, I'm definitely going to look into it and try to do something in that regard so people can actually use it for its intended purpose.
Cool. Okay, graph. Okay, so you are. Is there any graph people here, or is it? Am I your hands?
Here are my hands. It's just me.
Okay.
I'm the only graph person.
I'm still working to get your slides transmitting. I've got them up. Sorry, I'm bringing my thing up so I can grade you while I'm running your slides. I've got them up. I'm just looking for the window. There we go. Okay, that should be being recorded now.
All right. Yeah, I'll try to be relatively quick to get us back on time. So graph is a graph editor, or also known as a network. It's the discrete math concept. This semester, I was the only one working on it. We had 6 last semester, but yeah, it's just me. Next slide. All right, so the current vision is for anyone in like algo or graph theory. This is a generally useful tool, so you're not having to hand draw your graphs the whole time. So it allows for basic graph construction, and then we've been adding more algorithms and ways to customize the graph look. Just trying to cover any bases for what any student would need. We've been using Vue. Front-end E3 network is the internal storage for the graphs, and then Semantic UI is our UI package. Next slide.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, read the next slide.
What? Hold on. We were here. Here?
I'm currently seeing overview and vision.
Oh, it's just being slow then. It went to
Oh, okay.
it went to organization.
Okay, well, I can see on my computer, I can talk about that. I have the presentation. So organization, because I'm the only one working on it, there's only so much to do. We have everything stored on GitHub, and that's where issue tracker is, I've been meeting with the project lead and lead developer from last semester to meet, and those who the pull requests have been going through. Yeah, and so we've been meeting on Discord, and then everything is on GitHub. We can go to progress now.
Hold on just a second. It is not updating in. Give me a. I'm going to come out of presentation mode because the problem seemed to start when I went into presentation mode. Okay. We will not be in presentation mode.
There we go. All right. So the progress, majority done by me. Alice did some, added some algorithms with some group, I believe. I wasn't in charge of overseeing that, so I'm not 100% sure all the information on that. But on my end, I added edge weights, which was a big disconnect from what we had and what we want people to be able to use. And so all of our previous algorithms now accept edge weights, and so Dijkstra is actually useful now. I added a strongly connected components algorithm, which takes all the components when they're strongly connected, it assigns a color to them. As you can see with the example, we've got the blue and the green for the connected components. Next slide. Added a lot to the settings option. Edge weights are toggleable for being able to see them. All the colors of the graph are now customizable. You can change nodes, edges, and all of the labels. Just for a little more visibility and usability. Move on. And then the info box, anytime you select a node or an edge, we have an info box that shows up, tells you the name or the weight. I just added the capabilities to rename things and change the weight directly from the info box rather than from our label tool before, which was a little annoying to use. And then also you can delete and deselect nodes and edges from the info box. And then our load functionality, previously you could save a graph and then loading it, you would just load the file and it would bring up whatever you saved. Now there are options to load from clicks and cycles, and there are a few presets to give examples for certain algorithms. And next. All right, so future plans. We are going to be swapping out of D3 Network and Semantic UI. This.js is a much more scalable program for visualizing graphs. We can reasonably show much larger graphs, and Semantic UI hasn't been updated in a while, and we need a UI package that will be supported through the future. And then the overall end goal is to allow users to script their own graph algorithms and be able to run them on our visualization. All right, that is it.
Not even a question slide. All right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We can intuit. All right. Do we have any questions for Max?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Cool stuff. So I was actually, I was in software design and documentation, and in that class we have to work on an open source project for the whole semester. So that was what my group contributed a few algorithms that they all now work. I merged some not very working ones into the website. I apologize for that. That will be fixed before the semester's out. But
I believe we fixed them, or at least they at least show up now.
fantastic. Thank you. But so I spoke to the main dev about this project to make sure that we could, we had permission to add things. And he said that his original idea for this was to basically create a language around doing graph operations. Is that what you mean by the graph algorithm scripting bit, or is that just kind of?
That's the idea. And just, essentially be a language, and then also have the visual corresponding of whatever is written by people.
Awesome, that's gonna be so cool. Thank you so much.
So are you thinking, I'm gonna piggyback on Alice's question. Are you guys thinking of your own language, or are you thinking of doing something like binding it to Python, or what exactly are you? Do you have a plan yet?
I think it's generally open-ended right now because it's a big step to take on, and we haven't really started that portion yet. But I assume it would be binded to Python or JavaScript, rather than trying to create our own language and syntax for everything.
Yeah, because writing I know people that love writing parsers and lexers and languages, but that's actually kind of a pain in the neck. So using something like Python or Lua or one of those other languages. Python in particular is a really nicely known open source language. I'm not sure about Lua. Go ahead. Okay, yeah, Lua is also open source, so that's another good one to consider. And you automatically get the interpreter and everything, or the lexer. Cool. Any other questions for Max?
Yeah, I have a quick one. As it has to do with scalability, you mentioned wanting to switch out to a platform that was more scalable. What do you find your upper bounds are right now, and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, currently, we can internally store much larger graphs, but the way that they're presented, like anything larger than like 20, 25, is gonna be, it's just not gonna be very nice to look at. The way that nodes and edges interact with each other, everything gets all clustered and not nice to look at. And so with Viz.js, we should be able to legitimately show graphs with thousands of nodes, rather than just 20 or 30.
All right, very cool.
Is Foundry here? Why don't you guys come on up? And you guys can keep asking questions of Graph while I get Foundry up and usable. And I will recloak. You all fail. All right, I will give you a thumb at 2 minutes, or at, 8 minutes, 2 minutes to go. And that'll mean 2 minutes to go. And you guys can let me know how you feel.
All right.
Right?
All right. Now that the anticipation has been sufficiently built up, we are Foundry Vtt. Four of us that worked on it are here: Hannah, Owen, Luke, and Lindsay. So, first, a little overview of what Foundry is, because we're not working on the entirety of the system, right? So it's just Foundry is basically like a desktop and web application for playing tabletop games, similar to Roll20, if anyone's heard of that. And so it works for a bunch of different RPG systems, and we were building a module, which is sort of just like an add-on that works across those systems, and that module is called Forian's Questlog. And so what it is basically is you, the game master, can make a list of quests, and you can make them a bunch of different types of quests. They can have objectives, subquests, rewards, that is integrated with existing items that already work in Foundry before Forian's, and you can customize all of the visuals and all of the interactions with the players. and this works across all of the different systems that Foundry has. So our organization for the project was, there's already an existing GitHub, and we all had our own forks of it that we would push all of our code changes to, and then we would merge those with the main fork. And we also communicated with one another through Discord, and there's also a Discord for Foundry developers that we use to talk to other people who were also working on the project outside of RCOS, and just people more familiar with Foundry in general. So some of the things that I specifically did, I made a lot of bug reports and enhancement suggestions because the module had been in a state of like sort of disrepair when we came to it. So there was a lot to do. Most of the changes that you can see that I did were just really tiny things like pedantic little grammar errors. And I've also been doing a lot of backend that you can't really see yet of converting JavaScript files to TypeScript on something that we'll talk about later in the presentation.
Yeah, so one of the things that I did was I added the bug reporter flag compatibility for FQL to use the module bug reporter. And so this basically means that while you're inside of Foundry, while you're either playing your tabletop game, if you come across an enhancement idea or a bug, anything like that, you can use the bug reporter module with FQL, and you can report it inside of Foundry. And then once you click the submit button, it will add a bug report to the FQL GitHub repo. Another thing that I worked on was building a macro compendium for FQL. And so basically, the macro compendium just contains different kind of script or chat commands that you can do inside of Foundry. So on the screen, you can see one macro is allow players to accept quests. And so this is a setting inside of the FQL settings, which allows game masters to allow players to accept quests that they make on the quest log. So here in the macro directory, you can drag each macro to the bar and you can turn it on or off. One of the other things you can do is use the macro to open the floating quest log or the quest log in general for just an easier access to all of those things. Hannah, one of our members, she made all of the artwork for these macros, and so all of the credit goes to her. So that was mostly what I worked on.
Yeah, so as Lindsay mentioned, I did the illustrations for her macros, and I also did some other stuff for the macro compendium, such as updating the README and the wiki page for players who will be using these macros in FQL. And so we were looking for, next to Foreign's Questlog, we were looking for other projects that were not being updated as of late. And we found a system, that was the system for the second edition of D&D to work on that hadn't been maintained in a while. So Luke will talk more about that.
Sure. Yeah. So like Hannah said, this is a system for Foundry, so it's a little bit different from the module that we had been working on, whereas a module is kind of an add-on. A system is more like a set of rules that everyone will play by. So one of the real reasons why we started to work on the second thing, I know it's one presentation, but kind of two projects, right, is we kind of came in looking for packages that were in need of developers, and the Foreign's Questlog module that we were working on, it kind of got to a point where there were enough people working on it externally that, you know, they were kind of outpacing us. They didn't really need us, so we turned our attention elsewhere. But I was really excited to get to work on this. This is a little bit more heavy in terms of working off of other things that the community is doing. So there's a lot of Foundry, open source projects that people have made for their systems that we were able to incorporate in kind of getting this up to date. So again, that's a good thing, but it was also a little bit of a challenge to get to be familiar with them all. And another issue was that this system hadn't been updated since a couple of versions of Foundry, so it's still an ongoing process to get this up to date after a couple of months of Foundry updates with this left behind. So here's a quick overview of what we're kind of doing for this system. Like I said, we get to work with other technologies. It was written in JavaScript. We're updating that to TypeScript. And you can see actually on the previous slide, there's a
Foundry itself is written in JavaScript, and there's a Foundry Vtt types extension that the community is working on that, makes it TypeScript compatible on our end anyway. So a little bit of a progress report on this. Unfortunately, there's not really much to show you in terms of what it looks like because we haven't gotten it to a point where it can build yet. But as you can see, originally there were 21 JavaScript files with 3,600 lines of JavaScript, and we're, more or less halfway through sifting through all of that and putting it into TypeScript that we can work with. And so the organization for this is basically the same thing. We're in GitLab instead of GitHub, but we use our issue tracker amongst ourselves, and that's how we keep that organized. And that's really all I have for the system. So I know it's a speaker. Owen, did you want to?
We just want to thank all of the people involved with the League of Extraordinary Foundry VTT developers because they were really helpful. There were a few specific people who spent a lot of time helping us. Thank you, Anthony, in specific. I think he's either watching this or watching this recorded later.
Anthony, Cody, and Ellen.
Yes, Anthony, Cody, and Ellen all gave a lot of their time, and we're very appreciative. And everyone else just on their Discord server was very helpful if we had any questions, just answering anything at any time. And so that was really wonderful. And so does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so I don't really know a lot about tabletop games. So is this like software for playing existing tabletop games with Dungeons and Dragons, or is it its own?
So it's designed to be very open-ended in that if you had a system that you could put into Foundry that was for a pre-existing role-playing game, you would be able to play that, no problem. But the way that it's developed is someone has to kind of go through and code up that system that you can use. So there are a couple big ones like your D&D 5e, which is the most common one, is obviously a very large system that is community maintained. And our system is something similar to that, where it's not quite as popular, but it's pre-existing. We're just kind of going through and putting it in. But if you wanted to, you could just as easily make your own thing and code it up, put it in. So it's very modular in that way.
By the way, Anthony is watching. He said that he loved the self-starting nature of your team. Every time you suggested research, you had already found it. So, that's good praise. Do we have any other questions from online? In person? Anybody? All right, so so the thing that I noticed was you guys had a lot of focus on issues. I mean, Owen, you spent some time trying to organize the things that are wrong by submitting a lot of issues. And then, Lindsay and Hannah, you guys put in
The macro compendium. Yeah.
So that's, you guys want to talk about that? Why was your focus so much on issues?
I got the last one. Do you want to take one, or I can keep going?
Yeah, so for me at least, I just really like trying to break things. That was the first thing I did, I think, was I tried putting in a quest name with 1,000 characters to see if it would break, and it did. But also, at least for the system that we were doing for Golden Glory, since it's sort of it doesn't even build right now, so there's a lot of things that needed to change, which had a lot of bug reports there. But also just with Forian's quest log, it was pretty barren on issues, even enhancement suggestions that were in there. So we suggested a lot of, I think pretty much everything that we worked on, we suggested. So it was nice being able to say, oh, this would be something interesting to use, because we also actually use this to play D&D, and so it's nice to be able to say, oh, let's it would be really cool to have this, and then we would be the ones to work on it and actually put it in, which was pretty cool.
Another thing was that obviously we talked a little bit about how there were other open source contributors working on FQL along with us, and so a lot of times we would put down issues or enhancement ideas and we would get some pushback from some of the other developers. And so not every time we got to do all of the ideas that we had wanted to do. And so I think part of it was that we a lot of time worked on issues that were already there because they were things that we could all agree on and decide upon together without it being, I guess, like a little bit with too much pushback from the other people who are working on it. And I know for Hannah and I, this was the first time that we had contributed to an open source project. And I know for, I think both of us, it was also our first time working with JavaScript. And so I think that it felt a little bit less intimidating to like work on, you know, some smaller issues than to just go right in with coding in JavaScript to try and make something new in the module.
Cool. And I'm not gonna, one of the reasons I bring it up is, you know, that's actually, you know, if you're doing that, you know, even if you don't get all the issues closed, you're setting up the next group, right? So you know, that's a good way to get organized. That's a good way to kind of get yourself started, right? Let's find all the things that are wrong. And by the way, if you like breaking things, you can make a lot of money as a QA guy. You know, that there are always, I just got, you know, some job mailing things. I'm trying to remember where it was, but that we're looking for new QA guys. So, nice salaries, good perks. Everybody hates you, but you know that's okay. So that's a good, you know, a good job. It's a good way to focus. I just wanted to kind of bring that out. Cool. Do we have ADC? Yep.
Thank you very much.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we forgot the clap. Good job, guys. And I'm going to actually try to remember to put the timer on this time.
Cool, so I'll just start. We are Automatic Door Control, me and Nick, who's online.
Hey everyone.
Hey, he is there. Good.
Alright, so yeah, I'm Nicholas. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, I'm Nicholas. I was an Android developer for ADC for this semester.
And I'm Mason. I'm also I'm a CS student, but for this semester I really took on the hardware for the project. And we have mentors and project leads who helped us along the way. Mallory, who kind of made this project, is making it work. She's at Cornell now, but she still acts as our project lead. And Jing, who was a developer for the project, but likewise helped us a lot during the semester.
So people's main goal is to provide students who need help opening doors with an easy way of doing that automatically via an Android and an iOS app.
And we also have put a lot of focus into having an easily installable custom receiver box that allows mobile users to interact with trigger the pre-installed door opening systems using the app through a Bluetooth connection.
So this software, before the summer semester started, we had an iOS app that was pretty much fully working. And we also have a website that allows you to log in and register with an account. But it mostly just displays information about the project. So our Android app was really the thing that was lacking for this semester. There was a preliminary implementation, but a lot of it was either outdated or broken.
And from the hardware perspective, at the beginning of the semester, I got this mailed to me from Jing, one of our former members, and we had a functional hardware prototype that was tested and working on a lot of doors on campus, but it was pretty much this very simple thing, which is pretty much just an off-on switch for an Arduino and a relay. That existed, but we had no functionality for Bluetooth or for the power system, how the power system was going to work within the building. So for this, now we've developed kind of a larger order quote, so we can have we have a quote for 9 of these devices that we can hopefully get out and running pretty soon. And we've done a lot of work with getting open source licensing for the hardware. All this I'll go into later.
So the main part of this semester was the login/register flow. So at the beginning of the semester, it was pretty outdated. The UI was not reflective of how it works on the website, so I made sure to update the UI. And also there was no register screen. So as you can see on the left there, that is the updated UI for the login screen, and then on the right is the register screen. I use local storage on the phone so that once you log in once, it will remember your credentials, and then when you open the app again, it will just automatically log you in. I also worked on trick login, which means using your fingerprint to log in. And the way this works is it uses the just regular biometric login API for Android. But when it succeeds, it uses that cached login credentials that are stored on the phone, and it uses that to log the user in. So if the user has never logged in before, the biometric login is not going to work. But there's an error message that will tell you that you need to log in and try to do that.
Cool. So I talked about the quote earlier. From the hardware perspective, we've put together, I've kind of changed around a lot of the parts. Our project hasn't been active for a few years since there's been a lot of like cost and availability changes when it came to the parts that we're looking for. We also I upgraded the circuit from kind of this very basic on-off switch to kind of what you see here, which has not only an Arduino Nano, but a Bluetooth kind of slave device that will be interacting with whatever mobile devices we have. I also got in contact and found a cheap circuit board printer who will allow us to print cheaply a very small set of circuit boards. I think we're looking at just printing 9 or so, but we can have that relationship to go back to. And as you can see here, we've added in the same relay to interact with the motor opening system and a DC-DC converter to convert from the 12 voltage source within the building power system to the 5 voltage source that our circuit works on. I also worked on getting this kind of newer circuit design translated to a Gerber file, which is kind of the file system that is used by circuit board printers. So you can see that's on the far right there. And not only do we have this set up in our GitHub and ready to be printed, but we've added a fancy new Cern permissive open hardware license, which is kind of a very new thing that Professor Turner helped us a bit with. So it's kind of exciting to have that our hardware design can now be open source as well as our software. And the two licenses match up, they're both permissive, and this matches nicely with the MIT license that's on our software. Yeah, and hopefully with this design, everything is relatively cheap. I think we're looking at about $19 to $20 for a full setup, and all the parts should be relatively interchangeable, especially considering the PCB should be relatively cheap if we need to make any changes to the circuit design. Thank you. That's all we have. Any questions or comments would be great. Yeah?
So if you have access to the app and you can control the doors, is it like selective specific doors that you can open, or do you have access to all?
So you have pretty much like the doors once they're added are kind of viewable from a map, and you can kind of go around, and once you're signed in with your RPI login, you can select and open the doors remotely. However, there were some security concerns with like you don't want to open a door at RPI from like Mexico or somewhere like really far away. So that's where the Bluetooth comes in, where these our circuits are constantly pinging. If it's very similar to like the little GPS tracker chips that you can like put in your phone in your wallet, that are constantly pinging, and when you're within the range, then it allows you to remotely open the door. Yeah.
Looking for comments. Let's see. Nope, just a smile from Andy. Probably on the last presentation. He doesn't care about this. Unless you're rolling to knock him down or something. Okay, so I'm going to ask, well, first comment I want to make, when you guys leave this room, you go out through this back door, to illustrate the problem, look at the door opener for this room, right? They've got a waste can and then a box of fluorescent lights blocking the button that you need to push. Mallory was on a cart she rode around campus, and to get into there would not have been an easy, an easy feat. And if you look around on campus to some of the other locations of the buttons, there are similar problems. That's between the JEC and Darren. That doorway, you can, if you ride up on a cart and press the button, then you have to back up and go around to get back in. And the students are generally nice, but if there's a large flow of them, trying to back up through a large flow of people that you just opened the door for, not so easy. So anyway, there's just take a look on campus and see some of these things. That was one of the things she was trying to attack. So the question I want to, that was a comment, right? But you have to have a question because that would be fair otherwise.
Of course.
The question I want to ask is, this was, Mallory had worked on this off and on for a number of years, and we were really close to deploying, a few semesters ago. But then it just kind of died down and it reinvigorated this semester. You want to talk a little bit about starting up a project that was, restarting a project?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting process. I'm not sure if Nick wants to talk about it at all, but we have, we kind of restarted this existing Slack, and we were kind of surprised to see, graduated developers who were not part of this project, who were part of the project years ago, saying, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that this was still alive. I thought this completely died." And we have a lot of people who kind of chimed in and were able to address a lot of our issues and stuff like that. And we had a lot of work to do in terms of combing through the existing kind of Google, the existing files and see what had and hadn't been done, because there wasn't, a distinct line of progression. But overall, I think we kind of got around that pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Getting resources from the past developers was definitely something that was important for me to do. In terms of looking through the API and getting the documentation, and then also getting mockups for the app to see how the UI is supposed to look. And also, as I said in the state of the project slide, a lot of it was outdated at the beginning, just because there hasn't been work done on it for a while. So that was definitely something we had to spend some time getting up to date with.
Well, I have, just to let you know, I have the precursor iOS app on my phone, waiting to go. So, at some point, we'll be all set. And the other thing I want to kind of throw out there while we're waiting for the OpenDS for All people to come up, if they're here, or come online, is...
I'm here.
Cool. Code decays just like dinosaurs, except it doesn't make oil. Just makes bits in the bit bucket. All right, OpenDS for All. I guess I am your... Give me a second. I'm going to grab my computer and become your hands. Oh, yeah, we have to give a hand clap for ADC. Thank you guys for reminding me, or for doing it without me. Okay, but my computer's about to go to sleep too, so I'm going to plug in.
Can I start, or?
Yep, you can. I was just finishing up the last presentation. I wanted to type a comment. You are good to go.
Sure. So our project is called Open Data Science for All. It is an IBM project created to accelerate the creation of data science curricula at academic institutions. Beep. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I got the beep.
Yeah. So there are only two team members, Hova and I. Also, our team leader, Andrew DeWalt from IBM. Also, a big thanks to Andrew for giving us opportunity and guidance for during this semester. So, what's data science? Open data science for all. There are a great deal of online material available for data science. We found that the best way for many students to learn and for institutions to deliver is through a combination of lecture, recitation, classroom activity, and hands-on assignments. So open data science for all attempts to fill the important niche. Our goal is to provide materials such as slide set, sample driven notebook for creating, customizing, and delivering data science and data engineering education. Modules were designed to target across university with both undergrad and graduates. The perspective of material largely comes from computer science with the emphasis on data wrangling and engineering as well as machine learning and validation. So in terms of the project organization, each category contains module and each module contains several components such as instructor notes, a set of PowerPoint slides, written notebook, sample quiz, or sample homework. In this semester, Pohua and I are mainly working on different new modules. We both support the main repo and work on a separate topic. Pohua is mainly focused on convolutional neural network and deep learning, and I'm mainly focused on the natural language processing. So in terms of the achievement for this project, the people who have made an important contribution to Open Data Science for All will receive a contributor badge. For example, create a module with 30 slides minimum or 30 cells minimum of markdown comments. More detail could be seen in the link on slide, or also in the GitHub repository. So the part I work on this semester is ALP module. I create a set of PowerPoint slides along with a Drip10 notebook. I'll just show a small part of my example. Since the project is for educational purpose, I didn't use very complicated code on the Drip10 notebook. So in terms of my PowerPoint, I mainly focus on the basic concept of NLP, such as tokenization, word embedding, RNN model, and some data analysis. There are also some code segments in the slides that help to understand the concept better. So there are just some example of the PowerPoint slides which show like how the PowerPoint looks like. Another bit. So in terms of my Drip10 notebook, I create a simple demo that will predict next word based on the previous word. This notebook contains most of the parts I think will be needed in the NLP, such as pre-processing, creating the model, training, and post-processing. Since I'm using the Python, I use TensorFlow carriers to tokenize text and create my module. I also wrote a small script to show how to use the module. Again, this notebook is for educational purpose of an NLP introduction. Therefore, I didn't use a huge data set to train, nor use complex models such as GPT-2 or GPT-3. So there are some like sample code in the notebook that helps to show like how the code looks like. Yeah, next slide, please. So since Pohua is living in another time zone and couldn't join the presentation today, so he left a YouTube video online, which we'll play right now.
Sorry about that. I tried to grab it and advanced. Let me grab that. Come on. So we may have some issues with volume online. I was was trying to fix that. Well, I was trying to fix that, but I don't know that I did. So I'm going to try to capture this on the microphone, but I'm not confident how well this will come out. So I'm just going to turn up the gain on the microphone.
Artists for money and modern doing is earning money and they basically don't have money. So I don't really include comments on earning in kind of way. So for the first part of the module, I include the money and I cover the architecture and the forward test and basic motion. And for the second part, I will do some use of technical framework. But if here I will use an engine of the model. So there are some introductions and some procedures in order to build the model or solving this problem. So the code I'm using is Python. So in this case, we use Python model. So as you can see, there are closing outputs and showing off the sample image and the model layer. And then we will have our final results with the training process. And so in the next part, we will improve our performance of the previous model by using neural network, which is pretty popular in computer vision, image processing. And so basically I will do some high-level instructions of the combination operation. And then I will stand up about my problems and curiosity in the model, and also the concepts related to the combination operation also introduced, order and drawing, and one summary and the training process, and then we'll finally move over to design. So besides this, I will still include a PowerPoint for a more intuitive understanding. The content of the PowerPoint is basically pretty much the same as in the notebook. So there are some, there are some more intuitive code and the output and the make our audience more comfortable and
Cool. All right. So I guess we go to the question slide now.
Actually, I just left the video link in the chat just in case the quality online isn't ideal.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure. And also, like both of our contribution are under the master branch under the new module staging area and under review by the technical steering committee. So yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Do we have any questions online? So one of the things that I'm kind of interested in is so we run spring and some summers, we run a course called Open Source Software. And we actually deal with this module kind of organization for material. And I think the questions that I have are, is anybody using these modules at RPI? Like we have a bunch of data science courses. Are they being used or?
I don't think they are being used currently right now, but I think they are being used somewhere like from UPenn or another university. Also other than RPI.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, do we have any, go ahead.
I think Andre is on and he can comment on who uses the module.
Yeah, just join the chat.
Yeah.
Or Redux.
So yes, I can comment on that. So this morning I did a workshop with the University of Windsor in Canada. So they are incorporating some of the content into the course material. We've worked with the University of Manchester, University of Liverpool in the UK, and several other universities in the US and all over the world. So although the adoption has been slow at the beginning, I think universities now realize that some of the content can be used to enrich what they currently have if they already have existing programs. So that's why we kind of are so happy about the contribution of these two students, because of the convolutional neural network and the natural language processing content that they created that universities has been asking for a long time.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, let's thank the OpenDS for All people. I'm gonna have to look at this, by the way, for the next time, the next iteration of data structure, open source software. That was one of my my thoughts. I hate to use something that's being used in another class here, but if it's not, open source material is great.
Andre, would you consider adding open source software?
Yes, definitely. So we are always looking at avenues to expand and make this kind of less focused on the lectures and the modules. So definitely, yes, we are open to suggestions.
Cool. I'm just thinking I can pull some of your modules in and use them as good examples. So it's a win-win, I think.
Fantastic. Let's talk afterwards.
Sure. Absolutely. All right. I think we are to social at this point. Do we have somebody from social here?
Professor Turner, we doing the presentation remotely, and I think it'll be easier for us if I can just share my screen.
If you can share your screen, go ahead. I will swap over to that.
Very good. Well, hello. I am Chris, and I am with the social team today to deliver the presentation for social. Our project manager includes
Give me just a second here.
Is there something wrong with my setting?
There's something wrong with my screen. There we go. Set up good. We're set up right now. Go ahead.
I'll restart. I'm Chris, and I am with the social team today to deliver the presentation for social. Our project manager includes Yue, Peter, and Tiffany. Other members include Evan, Chris, Diego, and Kevin. So what is social? The team created social with the goal of helping RPI students expanding their social circles remotely through like a series of web-based applications and mini games. Social is an already existed RCOS project that has been worked on by former RCOS students. For this presentation, we'll be focusing on the part that are currently under construction. The RCOS students were divided into smaller sized teams, each working on their own part of the project. They include the web page using interface, login registration and character selection, admin dashboard and user dashboard, and the chat interface. And we will move on to the organization part of the presentation.
Hi, I'm Diego, and I would like to introduce the organization of our project for this summer. So first thing up here's my GitHub link, and we have most of our work in it. The tasks for summer semester are divided into three main parts. Kevin works on administrator dashboard, Chris and I work on user interface, and Evan works on character customization. During the summer, we meet twice a week, having our working session every Tuesday, and we do weekly progress report every Friday. Then we will have each of us introducing our contributions.
Starting off with the main web page and user interface. This page is done individually by me using React as the main structure. The main function of the web page is to navigate users to the right locations according to their needs. The navigation bar has 5 references, including about, discover, games, sign up, and sign. With the sign button highlighted, as that will become the most frequently used feature. Each of the navigation options will take the user to a different section of the page, with the exception of sign up and sign, which will be linked to the game interface. There are a few other features designed and implemented on this page, such that the site has multiple pages from top to bottom, which can be navigated using the navigation bar. This first page also has a video running in the background. And at the very bottom, there's a footer section. Next, we have the login and character selection interface.
Hello. Hello everyone, I'm Evan. I'm in charge of the login as well as the character selection interface for social this semester. Both parts are closely related and done in Unity, as you guys can see in the diagram. A player has to successfully log in order to access the character selection interface. And after the user finishes choosing the look for the character, he or she will be directed to the actual game scene. Next slide, please. So for the login interface, we got 2 sections, the login section for existing users and the create account or sign up section for new users. So new users has to create an account and verify the corresponding email address first, while the existing users can just use the email address and the password to log in. There are many small features such as a local refresh token that can save the login status and save some time if the user decides to just quit and log in again. And after 3 unsuccessful login attempts, 1 additional forget my password button will appear that will lead users to external website that they can potentially change their password. I use Amazon Cognito service from AWS SDK for Unity to complete this part. It was quite difficult to use, and there are many parts that are not perfect. For the rest of the semester, I plan to polish them a little bit and also sync the custom data for users. Next slide, please. And next, we have the character selection interface, which is pretty self-explanatory, which you can see in the short video that I have on the slides. The users choose among different sections of the look, and they can kind of like change each of the component. User can just, or they can just generate like a random look if they want to get through this part really quickly. This part is mainly done Unity using C#. Yeah, that's it for me.
Hi everyone, this is Kevin. I'm in charge of building a dashboard for both the users and admins of social. For now, the dashboard has a login page that authenticates users with AWS Cognito user pool, a post list that can display announcements, and a user list that fetches user information from Cognito. The procedure of creating an account in the dashboard is to first register and log into the game, and then use the same email and password to directly log into the dashboard. Other than the sign function, I have completed the authorization logic for the dashboard based on user groups in Cognito. The access to certain components within the dashboard is restricted to the admin group. Next slide, please. For instance, as shown down below in the GIFs, the user list is only visible to admins, and only admins are able to create and delete a post in the post list. The dashboard is designed to have 2 main functions for users in the future, serving as a chat room for users and admins of the game, and assigning tasks from mods and to users. For next week, I'm gonna finish the task assigning page and add it to the dashboard, and hopefully by the end of the class, I'll be able to integrate the dashboard to social. That's essentially everything I did for the project.
And hi, here's Diego again. I was mainly working on some front-end design using JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for this summer. Frankly, I had zero previous experience on this field, but I deeply appreciate this semester that I had a good chance to learn about them. As being assigned, I first implemented the chat UI in the first 2 to 3 weeks. We had some minor amendments according to our feature requirements. And on the left, this is how it finally looks like. And it will be the chat user interface for our app for admins and users to communicate with each other. In the next following few weeks, I implemented event schedule interface that will organize different activities that will be assigned to users. Next slide, please. And lastly, for another 2 to 3 weeks, I implemented countdown timer for task managing. On the left, it was my very first design of countdown timer. It was simple. It has tiny amount of animation and counts at most 100 seconds. However, in one of the progress report, a team leader points that we usually count in hours. Also, the design had better have a more formal look and a better accordance with the overall style. Thus, I made my second version of countdown timer. It's on the right, and it will be used as a part of the mission interface of our project. And that's all we had for the semester.
All right, thank you. We'll be taking any questions.
Do we have any questions, guys? Anybody online? So, so I'll ask one. You guys have a really interesting organization from the standpoint of with these disconnected games, it's really easy for people to join in and contribute and get out. Was that part of the thought about the design, or is that just something that happened fortuitously?
So your question is, it's too easy for people to join in, join out at a certain point. So you're worried that people won't stick to the game long enough to have a interactive experience?
No, I was just asking you to I wasn't saying whether it was good or bad. I was asking you to kind of comment on it. It seemed like it was a good way to run a project since people have the freedom to join. You don't have to learn everything in order to contribute.
Oh, you're talking about the project itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We are opening to new contributors to the project. We have a lot of parts that requires different kind of skills. So anyone with experience of basically any sort of programming can essentially contribute to the project.
I would answer this question as well. So it's my first semester in RCOS, to be honest, and I was attracted by the very first pitch from the social project. But I was pretty concerned because I had no previous experience in such fields. But the team leaders was like, it doesn't matter. You can just say what you're interested, and we can figure out a way that you can contribute to the whole project. And they will tell me which pathway I better go for. What skills I need to learn to accomplish what I'm interested in. And to be honest, I learned a lot from that progress in this semester.
All right, so what is a neural network? So,
You may want to go back a little bit and start. The microphone was muted.
oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Hi guys, I'm Alvaro. This is line overlay corruption. This is going to be a new tool for exploitation over transformation in art. I'll be explaining what art is in a second. So the first thing is, what is a neural network? Well, a neural network is a primitive brain, essentially. If you guys ever took stats, you know what's a linear regression, which is essentially a model to predict certain things. And this new model that has recently been developed has gained fame in the last few years. It's self-learning. I won't delve into it much here now, but as you can see here, the aim is to like break it down, break the input down, and have a more self-sufficient form of classifying input. The main components are usually an input layer and an output layer and an activation function, which essentially is either is this feature on or off, meaning are we gonna give importance to this feature of the image. And yeah, I won't delve much into it. This is a CNN, by the way. There are three main types of neural networks in machine learning. CNN is one of the core important ones. And yes, we can talk more about it if you guys have more questions. But then, what is art? Art is adversarial robustness toolbox. And it's not a toolbox, it's a library. It's not a library, it's a Python library. So essentially, it aims to like defend and enhance models performance, like neural networks. And it supports a lot of frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow, Keras, and yeah. So to start, let's start with an example of expectation of transformation. We give an input to a neural network, and then, but in expectation or an adversarial image is gonna be perturbed or it's gonna be changed somehow. And you can see how this model classifies it as guacamole. And if you think a tractor is a guacamole, you must be going nuts. Then what we try to do is that we're the bad guys. We're trying to keep the model confused. So what happens here is that even when we rotate this adversarial image or evil image, it's going to be classified correctly. It's going to be a tractor, but we still want it to be guacamole. So we're trying to strengthen the evil side, essentially. And then if you apply the EOT to our image, what happens is that when you rotate it, it's still classified as a guacamole. So essentially, EOT is an algorithm. It's to create more robust adversarial examples or images, inputs, over a distribution of transformations. Distribution because there's a lot of inputs, and these inputs are changed through transformations rotation, like rotation and contrast. We want to maximize the log likelihood, which is essentially how incorrect is this image classified. We want to like make that gap wider. So these perturbations, apparently they're imperceptible to the human eye. So as you can see, if we go back to our tractor example, you can't see what exactly is going on because it's very subtle. So
So this is an example from a paper, synthesizing adversarial examples. How this model was trying to, this is an ImageNet model. It was trying to classify a turtle, but these images right here are perturbed or they're like changed slightly, and it just classifies this as a rifle, and it's going nuts. Yeah. So my goal was to develop a new form of corrupting input for a model. I was working on trying to develop random lines over an image. Vertical, horizontal line overlays. This will be a new form of corruption of an image. Project organization. This is my first time in RCOS, so I had to get used to GitHub. Type the image overlay first, then use the base module to work on my new corruption, and then afterwards test this model to verify if it works, obviously. This should not be here, sorry. Progress, so I built the image overlays using Jupyter Notebooks. I work using PyTorch framework mainly. So I tried to keep stuff simple. I was trying to use the ImageNet dataset, but what happens is that the inputs, the images for that dataset are very big, and there are so many more categories to take care of. Meanwhile, Cypher 10 is just 10 categories, while ImageNet is 1,000. ImageNet, too complicated. Setbacks. So again, I wanted a lightweight model. I then also want to download images or store images in your computer or whichever device the user was going to be using. So I wanted to take care of that. And also another setback was there are so many frameworks these days for data science, so it's hard to translate. Some are more efficient in some things, and others are just hard to use. I was mainly trying to use TensorFlow. Well, mainly my main one was PyTorch, but I was mainly trying to translate between TensorFlow and PyTorch. That's it. Thank you guys. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for speaker? So you were using PyTorch and TensorFlow. They're both open source.
Yes.
Language extension. So how did you kind of decide to concentrate on PyTorch over TensorFlow? Is there something that went into that decision?
So PyTorch is generally, first thing is I had a sort of bias for PyTorch just because I had more experience in it. Second thing is that PyTorch is fairly more extensible. It has more specific, concentrated, how would I explain it? It's more, compared to Keras and TensorFlow, you can specify more what you want to do on your neural networks in PyTorch. There's a lot of details that go into building a network, so I like using PyTorch better. It also depends on your preference or your what did you try first too. I favored PyTorch better. I got used to it more.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good Good answer. Any other questions for the speaker? Otherwise, we are about 2 minutes over. So hopefully a few less technical difficulties next class, and we will get through a little bit earlier. But thank you. Very nice. Very nice. And I think, as you guys are checking out, I do want to thank, you noticed we had some IBM people in here we had some IBM projects in here. The Adversarial Robustness Toolkit. I have to go back over my slides to remember everything. But we had a number of projects that were IBM projects here, and it was really nice to have them. And all of the mentors who were helping out and hanging out. We had a mentor in the back here as well from a project that didn't present today. So it was really nice, and I want to thank you guys both for logging in, as well as just for all the help you've given the students over this semester. We can only provide, let's see, we had Foundry VTT was here, OpenDS for All, IBM Adversarial Robustness Toolkit. I don't know why adversarial is such a hard word for me to remember. But thank you guys. Thanks, and we had Susan Maleka here. So thank you very much for the time you've put in. We really do appreciate it, and I hope that some of the student projects have kind of helped advance your goals as well. So again, much appreciated. We will reform again on Tuesday, and we'll go through another 8, and then hopefully we'll be done. We'll wrap up on Friday with the last 4 or so. So thank you. Have a nice afternoon, and we'll see you in a couple days.